Hello everyone, welcome to SPARTA.
Today's guest is Yvonne Wilhelm. She's going to talk about the projects of the art collective knowbotiq that she's doing together with Christian Hübler. Who's not here with us today, but Yvonne is, and we're looking forward what she's going to share with us.
Yeah, as usual, we have a Q&A session after this video, and we'll post the link into the video description. If you don't see it directly, press refresh F5 and it will appear. And that's it. Hi.
Hi.
How's it
Hello,
going?
Till. Hello, Pia.
Yes.
Fine.
Looking great. I share your screen now and you can start with your presentation.
Okay. So you have to say okay because I don't see if you share the screen, but
it's online now.
Okay. So thank you for the invitation, Pia and Till. So I'd like to talk to you about the project of knowbotiq. As you asked for maybe the stories behind the stories and the stories who we as an art group, as an art duo, create by our research and by our projects. As maybe if you don't know, or if you know knowbotiq, it's a duo who exists nearly 30 years. So we are working, we start to work in the field of media art, and later on then we switched a little bit more to art, in urban context, in environmental context, and still with a lot of affinity to the technological, aesthetical, or also in a kind of algorithm, but also political wise. So I will tell about 2 or 3 projects. It depends on the time we have and how many I will tell. There are the projects of the last, I think, 4 years, what we've done. I chose 3 works who are focusing on a specific materiality. So it's about, what I also will tell, it's not only about the finalized works. I will show you a lot of images also related to our research, related to our processes, how we start with our project, how they change by the realization. What we also have is a lot of projects we work on 3-4 years sometimes, and so in that situation that we are working so long on the projects, there are a lot of variations, and also I think it's a nightmare for curators and also people who work in the art fields to deal with that. But that's our practice. And I will share to you. So for these 3 projects, Swiss Psychotropic Gold, Thulu Thu Thu, Before the Sun Harms You, and Arthritis Studies, Remote Sensation, that's one project. All of them are created in the last 4 years. What's for us, it's interesting, it's always the topic of working with some, focusing maybe on materialities, or on sometimes on maybe phenomenons like the term of work by Amazon, or by the invisibility of the synthetic biology in all these global laboratories. So, and in the 3 works I will show you, that's one, it's focusing on gold. One is focusing on carbon, CO2, and one is focusing on mercury. For us, it's interesting that all of that, some kind of molecular materialities, so something but you can't deal with, to look at and to point on and say, okay, it's clear on what we are working. It's really what's interesting for us. Is to work on non-human factors, also on libidinous aspects with the non-humans, but also with landscape, environmental, and also urban political conditions. I will start with the project we finalized last year. It's the Swiss Psychotropic Gold. And I will tell you also a little bit about how it comes to the project, because we as an artist duos, we don't have this kind of studio practice. We always said it's a kind of post-studio practice. We mostly we start with the invitation from curators or from project managers or from sometimes museums, or so it's totally different. And on the base of this invitation, we start to work on it. So as I said, for us, we don't have this kind of clear term of an artwork. It's more about practices we have. And in the case of the Swiss Psychotropic Gold, our practice, I think it's the practice of critical fabulation. So what it means, it's to work on a specific phenomenon, and that's gold. It's the raw material gold, but not to make this kind of enlightenment and to say it's knowledge production, we share statistic and something else, what you have to know about that. It's more about to create an approach to the gold on imagination or on aesthetical questions, or also on the libidinous questions. And that was also in the context of the invitation to the Swiss Psychotropic Gold. It was not clear at the beginning that we will work on it. It was an invitation from the Institute from Contemporary Art at the Zurich University in Zurich for art. And it was a project where they invited 7 or 8 cities to collaborate on the base that they asked what potential had art in the public spheres. And as you know, if you ask some persons, it was mostly a kind of a collaboration between artists, curators, and theorists. If you ask that term, that question in Mexico City, it's a total other question than in Beijing, Hong Kong. It was not so difficult to do that in Hong Kong in 2016. But it's all in Mumbai. It has different positions and different contexts. So, but why I mentioned this. Because it's interesting, because mostly when you are invited from different countries or institutions out of where the place where you are living, you have to go there and you have to make you an expert in a short of time. Here it was the case that the project leader said, okay, you have to work on your own city. And so we are worked on Zurich. We are not Swiss, we are German and Austrian, but we are living for 30 years in Switzerland. So it's it's for us no problem to talk and to work about the city. Because Zurich, it's very small for us, we thought about what does it mean to work on Zurich, but because it's so small, we expanded a little bit to Switzerland. And Zurich and also other cities in Zurich are very well known for their global position in dealing with raw materials. As you know, all this kind of headquarters, Glencore, but also Nestle, they have their head in Switzerland. So for us, it was very interesting to work on that phenomenon of raw material, dealing with raw materials. And but then we research in a very normal way, because you have to do it, though you want to overcome these traditional ways of research. But in that case, we did this very normal research, I will show you, go to the archives, dealing with documents and also with doing interviews and talking to the experts. And then we realized that only 2 raw materials are really going into Switzerland and going out. And that's the both, maybe it's not, it's a little bit placative, or placative, you would say in German, it's chocolate and gold. And then we realized that Switzerland has a long history with the topic of gold, and also a long history to avoid political discussion about the importance of gold in the Swiss economy. And as you know, only for the moment, as I said, here it means 70% of all the gold what's extracted in the world and goes to the economy itself for jewelry or for smartphones or the industry or something, and it goes through Switzerland. So that's a lot. And in Switzerland, if you ask the person, nobody knows that. So it's a kind of a hidden economy, and it was for us interesting, to ask why it is this, to avoid to talk about. And also in history, you had, if you look there, you have this situation that sometimes, and you see here the documentary photos, you have sometimes this awareness in the public about the different political parties, how Switzerland is dealing with the raw material gold, because now it's still virulent that Switzerland has 4 refineries, 4 of the biggest refineries in the world who refine the gold, and some of them still comes from conflict parties, size Togo, size Congo, size also Peru. So it comes out of children's work about supporting dictatorial systems, all of that, it's still going on. So we had that we are talked, as I said, to bankers, to gold dealers, to NGOs, representatives, to historians, asking why is this importance of the gold not aware in the Swiss public. But at the same time, we did our own research. We made field recordings. We worked with the musicians. It's Anna Fry. We worked with Roy Jane. He was a social anthropologist. Stefan Leins, he was a banker. We worked with Nina Bandi very close. She's a politics theorist and activist. So therefore, we have a lot of time to talk and to deal with. And we also go into the countryside to visit the refineries. And in that case, that's 3 of them. It's Arca-Haureus, Pump, and Valcambi, and all of them are in Ticino. But nobody knows it. If you go there to them and said, okay, can you say me where the refinery is? They said, we don't know it. So it's very hidden. They are in this kind of small valleys, and you have to search for it. So still, it's not aware of the importance of gold, but also it's also not visible. And in that moment, it goes more and more that the history will attract us of that, or not only the history, also the actual meaning and entanglements of gold in the economy of Switzerland. And there's another small thing. What was for us interesting was the topic that why in Switzerland, as you know, you have always with Switzerland, you have this connection to security, to luxury, to neutrality, all this kind of positive characteristics for national understanding of Switzerland. And what is interesting by the gold refineries, refining means cleaning. So the Swiss cleans the gold what comes from all over the world and transform it to a 99% gold. What means the gold has no history. There are no traces inside where people can say, okay, this gold came from Congo or Togo or something else. It changed now a little bit because for the last years, the analyzing methods gets a little bit more sharpened, and also the Swiss economy has now the situation that they have to declare import and export of gold, what was not possible until 2017, I think. So it comes in, it goes out, and nobody knows. So I telling a little bit because for us it takes a long time of research. It takes a long time of talking to people, looking not only believe in that what normal research produce and ask for, this kind of going to the archives, look for the documentaries, find out the truth. That's for us not really the intention. So we are producing this kind of and reflecting this kind of research methods, but we also looking for internet. We also go through all the websites. In that case, Pump and Balkambi, that are websites from the refineries. So, and we are asking and searching for the aesthetical values. So what is the aesthetical and also the emotional rhetorics, how the refineries or the economy represents themselves. And in Switzerland, it's really a huge narration about this, about this stability, about this prestige, about this luxury, what you saw also in the city, also in the small valleys. So this kind of, you can call it a white supremacy, that they are said, we are proud of that, what we are represent. And even now that Putin and Biden are meeting themselves in Geneva, it's based on that image what Switzerland produced for themselves. We are neutral, we are safe, so came to us. We try to negotiate in political conflict between different parties, so it works. So this kind of imagination, it's a kind of a social imagination, it's perfect. And we are mostly more interested in that case. And we are reading such books like from a banker about gold laundering, or about Berne Declaration. It's now public ISIS NGOs who makes really a good works. But what comes out, it's mostly statistic diagrams and kind of lists of details and details. But for us, it's interesting that on that base of this kind of books, where you can also say, okay, white men know the truth under that label, that's the base of political decisions and also economic decisions. And if there are also activism against, or some, in Switzerland, you have this kind of Volksabstimmung, so the people itself can vote for the political strategies. It's based on this kind of dealing with statistics and diagrams. And therefore, as I said, we are searching for other, my power. We are searching for, of the other representation. And that is what critical fabulation means. It's not really it's a term of Saidia Hartman, and it's not a belief in the archives itself. She said there are some leaks and lacks in the archive. And because mostly the archives are produced by the superiority system, or mostly by white men, so they decide what's inside the archives. And she said, we have this critical fabulation, we have to invent a lot of them not to fulfill the lacks in the archives. She said, no, to talk about the lacks in the history writing. And also what I can add also in this kind of image production. And that is what's interested us, that we are saying, okay, we want to tell other stories. What have we done with all that research? we looked also for other situations, not only for gold in relation to the refineries, not only for the extractivism, not only for the economy and financial sector. We also looked here, you see it in the images, also for this kind of libidinous qualities of gold. As we said, gold is also always a kind of exchange of value. And if you look for wedding rings, you know it's a kind of a libidinous exchange. And you have it in the Indian weddings, you have a lot of this kind of wearing golds. So people women sometimes have their own gold, but it means it's maybe a kind of a dealing the relation to the husband. And also what you said, most of the gold, what it's produced, it goes in jewelry. So for presents from man to woman, or for the representation of the man with a golden armbanduhr. So this kind of what you have with Rolex and with this kind of showing the luxury. So as we said, there are a lot of other stories about the gold, and also about the molecular gold. Means it also goes into your body, and it's dealing with your desires and with your eroticism, with your sexuality. But it's only a part of them. So as I said, we have the Swiss Psychotropic Gold. It's a huge project complex, and I'm only shows you a little bit a small part of them, because I want to focus also on the research and how we deal with that kind of knowledge production and with its materials, and how we want to transform it to come to the moment of the critical fabulation, how Satya Hartman is formulating. And so I will show you a small part of the exhibitions, and it was the exhibitions in the off space in Zurich itself. I have no overview for the moment, so sorry for that. I go direct in the moment where we create out of this representation of the refineries itself, as I showed you before, this kind of wallpapers. So you see on that different elements, what is from the refinery PAMP, how they represent themselves dealing with this kind of Füllhorn. So that's a kind of a mythical vessels about all the libidinous inside, or with the kind of promising erotic attraction by wearing jewelry. But at the same time, they said we are looking for the future. So they were aware of the problem of gold, and they say we are invest a lot in fair gold, so that if you buy gold, it's really risk-free. But what means risk in that case? So we created also from Age Heraeus, who is dealing with the slogan of seeking maximum purity, or dealing with the we are following a long-term industrial vision. So this kind of creating a kind of cleaned industry, and it's only for us and for our representation as people with no problems, with a lot of money. So it's what we ask and try to reformulate with this kind of wallpapers, but it's only a small part. Here you see the refinery Valcambi, who also searching for a lot of other options to create jewelry, and that's a kind of a memory situation for the visit of Elizabeth II on the Cook Island on 2015. But as you know, why do you need a kind of a memory coin for a very colonial event? So it's always this moment that if you look a little bit closer, it gets weird and more weird for this all this topic of gold and relation to Switzerland. here you see a little bit the situation. I don't in the gallery space. We always, what we have a little bit on that moment is also that we are talking and dealing also with the female aspects. If Christian would told you the story, it would be another one. It's then in that case more about, yeah, these huge refineries, all this kind of a lot of material about extractivism, and also what its global factors. But in my case, sometimes I bring in this also critical populations about the female stories who you don't find in the archives, in the documentaries. And that's the base also on Saadia Hartman's theory. And also, if you look a little bit closer, then you see how visible are the connections between this kind of Chador, this very well-known parfum flacon from Dior, also related to this kind of very violent deformation of women in Nepal. But if you only look at the flacon, you are asking for aesthetical and formal negotiations. So that's what, and therefore I said it's not only about gold, it's not only about extractivism, it's also about aesthetics. And that it's what we are searching for. And also for the aesthetics, not only on the body, also for the aesthetics in the landscape. And if you see here that in Switzerland, there is a way of dealing with gold, they called it very innocent, because they said it's only a very shiny, a very sterile metal, but you don't talk about where it comes from. So in that case, in extractivism in Peru or in Colombia, where I'm working, or in Brazil, it's the base of totally deformation and distraction of landscape in a huge scale. And there we are searching for, we are asking, how can we deal with that if you have this kind of document, you have the archives, you have the NGOs, and they are saying, hey, look at, we have the information, how bad it is, but nobody listened to that. So therefore we are asking maybe also not only for this critical fabulation, so looking in a different way to archives and being sensibilized for history writing in a total other way. We are also saying maybe we have to change, or we have to deal with our perception and reception, and also with that knowledge production and reading and dealing with information. It's not the only strategies. Maybe you have to look for other strategies. And in that situation of the off space in Zurich, we offer different ways of perception and reception. So, and on the topic that they are dealing with the fact, not only looking inside and dealing with their own psychological construction, we said also there is a collective psychological construction. You called it today traumas. So this kind what's now very common, that they're saying there is a social trauma. So the society has also some psychological vulnerability, what we have to deal with. And in the meditation, what we offered here with Gabriel Flukiger, he's a former student with us who is now going to this kind of shamanism and deals with a lot of different strategies for a kind of unaware knowledge production. And he said there is a kind of, with meditation, producing a collective reworking of traumas. And in that case of the image, he was meditating, and Anna Frey and Nina Bandi, they make a kind of audio lecture at the same time. So, and then he offered a kind of workshop for the public to deal with this kind of collective traumas, but also ghost. You have a lot of this term of ghosting, haunting, what is searching for the base of identity of a society, what it's not produced by this kind of national image production, what the Swiss really good in. So this goes, and therefore it was also in the newsletter, we created this kind of two ghosts of representing this kind of collective trauma. And we offered also acupuncture. What you know is that also acupuncture lose this kind of blockage inside your energy flow, and you can use it inside the exhibition space. And also this kind of working with the vaporization of hallucinatory fluids. In that case, it's golden Viagra. I don't know how to explain how it works. And the golden henbane, so Bilsenkraut, it's a German word. It's a very old herb who has the possibility to deal with your very your memories inside, what's very deep inside, and you can raise it up. So that was all, that's a very small part. I'm focusing on that moment because telling other stories. So how to deal with other story, creating other story with critical fabulation, but also on the other side, maybe to look for other perception methods. At the end of the draft project, was goes nearly 4 years, we have the chance to make a book. So I think for a lot of students and artists who are working with a kind of biopolitical, geopolitical topics or social political issues, and they made a lot of research, mostly is the question, what are we doing with that knowledge, what we accumulate? So you're working for 4 years on the topic, and yeah, how to deal with it. And so we take the opportunity to make a kind of a book, what's financed by the institute. And in that book we have also films and audios. So a small SD card is on it, but also text and images and reflections, and also artist contributions. I won't only give an overview of the topics what you have, which is metabolism, geopolitical flows, the molecularization, the libido and the psychotropic gold, this promise of pleasure, or the fabulations on the refining and healing. And we had an exhibition last year in Basel in Switzerland, where we had the opportunity to show 3 works, what was good for us, and we took also the opportunity to create a video. Creating a video, I will show you 2 examples because it goes in the same direction. We're asking how can you dealing with the kind of searching for sensibilization for stories who are hidden or not visible or nobody is interested in, and what are the different methods and aesthetical strategies to deal with. And therefore we do mostly some videos who is working only with found footage. So at the same moment it came out of the internet, we don't create our own objects and drawings or something, even mostly not really video material. It goes out of the digital archives of the internet, because there's a lot of representations, and we combine this representation in different contexts to create a kind of a psychotropic awareness of the story itself. So therefore I want to ask Till to start the video. It takes, in the total it's 70 minutes. We will show 9 minutes for the beginning. I make a short break and then we continue the last 4 minutes. Okay, Till? Yeah.
there is a machine, and this machine is quite technological, for example, related to a specific capacity of satellite imaging that can render the surface of the Earth and that can search for minerals through new algorithms that are able to kind of make a sum out of what is the visual information plus an algorithm that would say, okay, because of that and that condition, there might be mineral deposits in the Earth, and then
we have personal reasons, we have environmental, social, historical, archaeological, many reasons to say no. What the miners that work in the project right now, that they are digging, they are destroying their history, I don't know what they feel.
We've mounted a camera to try to capture the work, but the instant he submerges, it just goes black.
Mattering is the ongoing differentiating of the world. Matter plays an agentive role in its ongoing materialization. Matter is substance in its iterative, interactive becoming. It is morphologically active, responsive, generative, articulate, and alive. Physical matters, matters of fact, matters of concern, matters of care, matters of justice are not secondary. At stake are questions of being, becoming, knowing.
The production of a second nature, the way in which the body gets caught up, new forms of derivativization, and the way the body gets caught up at a molecular level. But it's still always been the case that in order to produce capital accumulation, you have to move through the phases of capital production. Nothing is just value-bearing in and of itself, not even gold.
The machine goes further because it is searching for some sort of weak states, a situation of weak states, meaning any type of transitional power or any type of crisis. Of course, the crisis often is induced within the same player, meaning the depths that are played out for some national states.
That's what I mean when I said the market disappeared. It literally vanished. There were no offers to sell stock. There were no bids to buy stock for what must have been 30 seconds to a minute there.
And so they have the whole world on screen, if you wish. That world is constantly flowing and moving forward, gushing forward, actually. And the traders try to make sense of that and use it in their financial transactions.
The market disappeared. It literally vanished.
This kind of machine is systematically scanning the Earth, which is a different type of geography that is starting to emerge in that sense. Then it is operating, and of course low-cost gold miners are operating through shareholder profit machines.
Stone witnessing, stone witnessing, stone witnessing.
In order to withstand the weather, we had to become stone.
Stone witnessing, witnessing for a stone, as a state of consciousness, is meant to be used in its widest, most inclusive sense, as well as in its deconstructive reach, as a form of testimony in the feminist struggle.
Becoming soil.
It is this related notion of the between space, between what can bear witness and what cannot be borne witness.
Becoming soil.
So that rather than merely pointing the witnessing outward, the movement simultaneously point inward, the here, there, and the elsewhere within here, all at once.
We had to become stone.
Who's speaking? Who's listening? How? When? Where? With whom? And with what?
Becoming soil.
Okay. Keine Panik. Also Sie können sich ja auch ganz auf der Website angucken.
Mercury, psychotropic, molecular gold.
capitalism's imperative is to produce a perfect self as a perfect thing. And that is what is called happiness.
That freedom to be happy is actually really about not only an injunction but a duty to be happy. And a duty to be happy is a duty to live your life in a way that would make others happy, because if certain people come first.
We therefore need to keep insisting on a political understanding of happiness and unhappiness. And on the other hand, happiness is now understood as a technological program of continuing expansion of the human desire to modify, control, augment his surroundings, his prospects, and his self.
Good. If you want, you can show the whole video on our website, knowbotiq.net. And I have to mention that the sound, it's from Ana Frei, you saw it on the image before, and Raw Forest, so Portuguese musicians, which we worked a lot. So I will keep it like that because it's only glimpses of the project. I want to continue with another project, which we started in 2018. And it has another strategy to deal with that, what I said before, something what it's invisible, what you not really take awareness of it, but it's also a part of that what constitute reality. And it's not that I believe in reality, but mostly what is it, what we want to address. So it's a kind of things what produce our political and also aesthetical and emotional ways of thinking and dealing, and what is art for us. It's maybe another strategy to produce knowledge beside of this kind of science or also the humanities. So therefore we believe in the function of art in the context of that what we so-called do reality, but we know it's all about fiction because really it's as I said, it's we are dealing with imaginations. Imagination are social produced and constructed, and it's mostly represent only a part of the society, mostly that who has a lot of power to present themselves, and not people who are oppressed or have no way of access to internet or to other media, or also the non-humans, what it's now very hip and cool to think about plants, animals, but also on minerals or on the molecular. So that's a little bit the over-crossing frame what I want to talk about. So the project Thulu Thu Thu, Before the Sun Harms You, it's a very cryptic title, but mostly the title, it's not really important. And sometimes we change it. We do change them during the project realization. So again, because I said I want to focus a little bit on the context, how the projects are transformed. It is based on an invitation from Sadie Young. She's a curator from a very small artist space in the north of Scotland, in Helmsdale. So it's it's north of Glasgow. It's Inverness. And it's really, then you have only the flow country. It's a peat, a very large peat, and it's the total north of the UK. And she has, it's very interesting because this small museum, it's a kind of an Heimat museum, folklore museum maybe, but it's the wrong word. But they have also interest in an international art program, and that it's focused on geopolitical question, on extractivism, on spatial justice, on post-coloniality, and also on gender issues. And you can imagine this focusing on this kind of topics who mostly also in the traditional art system are very confronted. We are confronted, or it's confrontative. So in a small village from 800 citizens, it takes a lot of questions. But I think this kind of combination of a kind of folklore museum who's dealing with the history of the country, especially in economic situations also, but addressing also a kind of international art public, it's very interesting. So she invited us to create a work in Helmsdale. And as you can imagine, it follows always the same strategies. And that means you go there, and that's the difference I explained before to the draft project, where the artist or the group of artists and curators work on their own cities. Here again, as an artist, you are invited and you go to the country. You have to transform yourself in a short of time to a kind of an expert. So the curators are expecting that you make kind of a solid research again, talking with people, with the locals, with experts, and make some kind of excursions. Mostly the people are recording, maybe the countryside, or if it's in a city, also their impression with their urbanity, or make some interviews with the experts. And we do this because we know that's the base, but as most, we are also bothered of them. So we are forced by the situation, and we like to go to other cities, but on the topic that we are saying, we are not working over the people there, not over the landscape there. We have the Überzeugung, so we are sure that we are also part of the landscape there. So if it's far in the north of Scotland, it has a lot to do with globality, with also entanglement with other countries, with other desires, as we saw it in gold, because gold, it's mostly sell and bought in Switzerland, but it's totally produced on another side. It's produced in the rainforest of Colombia, of Brazil, and it has a lot of impact there, but mostly because it's our mundane daily way. Also with the smartphone, we use it, and we don't have an awareness that we are at the same time a part of the distortion and destruction in the rainforest there. And here in the peat of the highlands in Scotland, we are searching for the same. As I said, we follow the strategies as it is expected from us. We found this kind of better landscape, so totally transformed by extractivism. But if you hear the north of Scotland, the flow country, you had a lot of tourism, and the tourism is playing with that kind of imagination. It's nature. You go there for walking, you have some excursion with the family, and you have the chance to have contact with a pure nature. It's totally bullshit. So if you go there, you know, because it's an infrastructural weak landscape, you have a lot of extraction. You have there's the first nuclear plant. So from the 50s, so you know it's a totally unsecure system. You put it there on the coast side because something, and you have this kind of accidents, and it don't has a lot of impact for citizens to live there. You have at the right side, in the fjords of Scotland, you have the parking place for these old oil platforms who are leaking. You have now, because of the Brexit, the idea to transform a national park to a space station. And even if you look and you are going through the landscape and you see a flock of deers, you said, oh, it's the nature, but it's also bullshit. The flow country, it's still in Besitz, so it's still, it belongs to the Earl of Sutherland. So the whole part of Scotland belongs to one person. And this person is interested in hunting. So he put these animals in the landscape because they have no natural enemies. They reproduce themselves in a huge amount of deers, and then they're hunting them with helicopters. So it's totally, if you scrap on the surface of that country, it gets weirder and weirder, because nature, it's not what we believe it's nature. It's really this kind of transformations in every case. And then we are looked for something what's maybe interesting, because not working on the landscape. Landscape, it's a kind of configuration we have. We have the access to nature, as so-called, to go into nature and have some experience with the the mountain, the line of the mountains with the sea, with the ocean coast. But we said, what is also a part of this landscape? And if you know the constitution of a peat, then you know most of them, it's dealing with a molecular situation. And the transforming the moss into a kind of a carbon CO2 storage. So it's a long-term process. And then in that moment, we take aware that they make this kind of transformation of the landscape, also of the point that they are aware that the peat itself, it's a global CO2 storage. And then we said, okay, that's our topic, because it belongs to us, because they keep the flow country, the peat, for the climate, for global climate, and for the issues of global climate. And now they make a kind of a deforestation, and they are cutting all the forest what they plant. The peat bog, also the torf product, so the production of peat bog, it's forbidden because it took the CO2 out of the storage deep inside the earth. And so we said, okay, you are part of a landscape, what it looks local and only this kind of experience with a local nature. No, it has this kind of global topic and this global entanglements. And then we started also to talk with experts. We're going to in Thurso in a very special an environmental institute who are working on peats. We are searching for the Messer station. We have some experience with the moss itself. Here you see this kind of huge deforestation, this kind of what I explained, this cutting up the trees. The creators made also for us some programs dealing with a former worker for the nuclear plant. We go into the peat, and one of the peasants showed us how the production of peat was going. We don't have found a lot of other plans of the Space Hub, but we also have a meeting with a storyteller. And then we had the aware that the storyteller, and he's really kind of, as you know, this kind of a little bit esoteric. He's in the 70s. He lives in Fintorn. It's one of the first hippie communities in Scotland. But he follows the way of storytelling in Scotland, and also to keep this kind of Gaelic heritage. And we talked with him a lot, and he told us that there was a very early way to communicate with material, with the nature. And he said it's a kind of producing hymns and incantations. So singing and praying with the material. And then we said, okay, we want to use this strategy to ask for other encounters. And that I said, other stories is to make other encounters possible. And we said, okay, we want to come in contact with the CO2, with the storage molecular material in the peat. And therefore we produced new incantations. And we asked artists, friends, to produce incantation, which means to came in contact with this kind of battered landscape, with this destroyed landscape, with a situation that it looks like nature, but it's totally transformed, and to say, okay, how can we have this contact to the CO2, to the moss, to the peat. And then we said, okay, we need a kind of a mediator. And then we start to produce a mediator with this very special material. It's a raffia. It's a kind of a generic material, what all this kind of people who are working with flowers are using, but none of them are really knowing where it came from. It's an African palm. And then we work with 5, sometimes 4, sometimes 6 people on this producing of this kind of object. but as you know, a little bit with the strategies of quilting. So it's really a kind, we are telling our stories about migration, about love, about social impacts, and it's woven inside this object for us. And then we make our first tests, and then with this object, what we call Thulu, and then we transported this object into to Helmsdale. And in this kind of public parade, we brought it to the museum. And for us, we said, okay, it's a kind of a collective object to make aware of this kind of molecular exchange and entanglement, and go against this belief that you said you have to collect facts, you have to analyze, and you have to analyze them, you have to formulate thesis, and then you have the kind of a political and economic decisions. No, we said there, we want to find other way collectively to deal with the peat. You see some exhibition from the parade, some images from the parade through Helmsdale. Then we are worked then in the exhibition space a little bit longer, also with locals on the Thulu object. It came a little bit such kind of an art piece. We don't like it, but we have also to follow the expectation of the curator. But what was interesting for us, and that's also very I skipped one image. I'm not sure if it is this, no. We had different events inside the Thulu object. We also invited a historian about, he's working on the post-colonial aspects of these highland clearances, because as most of you are knowing, the highland clearances were done in the 17th, 18th century, and the meaning was put all the crofters, the small farmers, out of the countryside to build up these huge farmings who belongs to the Earl of Sutherland, and then you have to violently to bring this kind of crofters to the coast, that they make maybe transformed to fisher, and Helmsdale is a kind of this product of this, that, or on the other side, you bring them to the colonies. And a lot of the crofters are brought with this kind of forced immigration to Canada, Jamaica, New Zealand. And there, this kind of the folklore museum has this base of existence, because a lot of people are coming back to follow their family trees. And he is working on that on the right side, because nobody is interested in the post-colonial history of Scotland. It's the same in Switzerland. They also have this kind of amnesia about the post-colonial impact. Germany also, but it starts. And so about the storytelling we have in contact with the object, it's also this kind of enrichment of the different histories, the object itself. Mostly we have also this kind of working with children. For them it's a monster, but still these different ways to deal with that object. We have also a kind of movement workshop by Shanti Harris with different people. And then at the end of the exhibition, we planned with Sadie Young a 2 or 3 day symposium in the countryside. So it's a mobile symposium. And we brought also the Thulu object with us. So we have 3 community buses, and with these community buses, we drove through the landscape, and we stopped on different places, and then different people starting to tell the stories about individual stories, but also research stories. It was January, so it was very cold, but still it was really a very intense collective impression. You see here the first step, it was Forsinat. It's a scientist station who belongs to the deforestation, but I explained. But also there I have a kind of a peatbog visitor center in the national park of the peatbog. Here in the back you see the flow country. And then here you have different people who telling their research. One of them was Roxanne Anderson. He's an environmental scientist who are working a lot on the global issues of CO2 storage. And Ariadne Collins, I met her in Berlin first, who is a specialist for international relations, and she is working on the carbon politics in South America, especially in the Guyanas. And so I have some impression, again, to make this kind of symposium always in a company of the object. We are going to this kind of nuclear station. It's called Atomic Beach in Dunray. Here you have the situation that they said it's forbidden to go there, but at the same time, it's not really dangerous. They said you have to keep the material out of your shoes when you step in the cars or something else, but still you have the awareness of something, what it's dangerous, but it's not visible. There we have some songs and also some rules of visiting the beach. And then the third step was going to the national park at a place where the space station should be built. And there's nothing at the moment, but there we have one person from Lockheed who explained what there will come and what you can see there. So it's a kind of this imagination of an industrial site, what should be constructed in the peat itself. And yeah, so you see, for us, it was really a total other way of taking contact with nature, with that kind of object, but also other ways of narrations, of telling stories. We as foreigners maybe go to a site, but we don't work on the specificity on it. We contextualize it to a kind of global entanglement with this CO2 storage and the impact on the global climate, what they have. And then we make this kind of incantations, what you can hear here. We build some incantation sticks, and the incantation, what we asked our friends for to formulate, you hear it also here in the landscape. So I have different aesthetical, auditive, visual situation where we create another access to the topic. So then we can look for the video. It's the second one, it's nearly 9 minutes, and then I will stop there and don't tell about the third project. Then we can make a Q&A. Wolfgang's video?
Gift it back.
The pioneer approaches from molecular to landscapes.
The communities are generally at the mercy of the government and of the discretion of multinational companies to whom the government granted the right to pursue extractive activity in and around the land that the communities generally consider their own.
Went on and on and on like this for a while.
CO2 is one of my favorite molecules.
Peatlands are renowned for their ability to soak up carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
CO2 is one of my favorite molecules.
We use cutting-edge technologies and techniques, including satellite remote sensing, to investigate how we can protect a crystal blanket model.
Went on and on like this for a while.
Climate and the geopolitical imagination, and why these kind of images matter, but also what the kind of relationship between these images and geopolitics might be. So it's obviously well recognized that climate poses a number of representational challenges, and we've talked about this a little bit.
On and on like this for a while. For a while.
Power is central in this arena, and then you can think about information also as a source of power, because you can't ignore an organization, even though you know maybe this ministry has reported very dubious numbers for decades. You still cannot ignore it if it is the ministry with the numbers.
Went on and on like this for a while.
telecommunications. But increasingly, space has been seen as a new domain for military. It says in their own documents that they won't arm any government which may use the arms for internal repression, external aggression, or violation of any human rights laws.
Okay. Gut. Dann danke fürs Zuschauen. Eigentlich bin ich fertig. Ich glaube, ich habe euch auch sehr viel Material gegeben, sehr viel Bilder, Images und auch ein bisschen Erfahrung aus unserem Art des Realisierens von Projekten, was aber einen sehr starken Aspekt von Research hat. Aber ich hoffe, dass es klar geworden ist, eben nicht Research, um wirklich Daten und Informationen zu sammeln, sondern auch wirklich zu sensibilisieren für die anderen nicht erzählten Geschichten und andere Wege des Geschichtenerzählens. Ich glaube, da ging es auch ein bisschen bei euch drum, oder? Ah, sorry, I talked in German. Okay, sorry. Nee, 10 minutes. Genau.